y'all doing? This is Jamey Baskow from FlyersNittyGritty.com, and Yariv Wolok is my comrade, my partner, my aficionado. Yariv, how you doing, bud?
What's up, buddy? What's up, buddy? So excited. So excited. We're still at the top of the league, everybody. It's okay. It's okay. One loss will not destroy us. One loss will
You
not
didn't
destroy
jump
us.
off the cliff yet?
What was that?
You didn't jump off the cliff?
No, not yet. Not yet. I mean, like pure excitement wise, I'm kind of over the moon, still with the way the season has gone, especially after everything that's happened. So, all in all, it's fantastic. I mean, it's, you know, if there's any team I would want to lose to at this point, it would be the best team in the league, Boston, or at least the team with the best record. And we beat them the first time, so how upset could I really be?
No question. No question. No question. And with the way they played on Tuesday, Tuesday night, it was fantastic. I thought they played a great. Yes, they didn't get the result in the end, losing 2-0, of course. But overall, I thought controlled the play for a majority of that game, and the puck possession was swayed in the Flyers' favor. So they did a lot of good things on the ice, and it was very noticeable to I. But let's talk a little bit about the 9-game winning streak first, because that 9-game winning streak was something special, and we needed to talk. I thought the Flyers played a better game Tuesday than they did Saturday against the Buffalo Sabres in a 3-1 victory to extend the win streak from 8 to 9. What did you make of that?
Yeah, I know. I totally agree with that assessment. I think the Flyers were kind of, I don't want to say running out of gas is the wrong term, but things are starting to stabilize a little bit. We're kind of riding high. It happens, but it's not that sustainable to continue to go on these runs. Even great teams, eventually you're going to run up to a team who's just up for it. They're up for the challenge. They want to stop you. And not that Buffalo was up for the challenge or anything, but it's the incentive of driving, and proving the league wrong. It kind of just starts fading a little bit. You start riding high and getting comfortable. Sometimes it's good to lose. I mean, even like losing to Boston against you can argue the better team. I mean, for the longer part of the season, they've been the better team. I mean, I think more people would agree that Boston is probably the best team in the league than they would say the Flyers, right, at this point.
Absolutely.
Even though the Flyers have been exceptional of lately, Boston has been consistent, not just this season, last season. And one thing I even think about Boston is that, I'm going to make this statement, and it's going to be super. I feel like nobody's going to agree with me on this, but I think Boston is a team that people assume is like the most talented team in the NHL, and I do not see that. I do see a plethora of talent for sure, especially the big names on there are absolutely elite players, but it's a team that really it does kind of what the Islanders do. Again, this is a team that traded off a couple elite young players because of what they perceived as either attitude problems or system commitment issues, but really committing to their team, to their process. They've removed players from the equation in, Phil Kessel obviously was traded out of town. And what's his name out of Dallas? For some reason, the name is escaping me right now.
Louis Erickson.
What'd you say?
Louis Erickson.
No, Louis Erickson.
Louis Erickson. Or Tyler Seguin.
Tyler Seguin, thank you. So Tyler Seguin obviously was shipped out of town as well, and these are elite players. I mean, Phil Kessel is an elite player. Despite what people want to joke around, he's an elite goal scorer. So these are high end players that ship out. Well, why? But again, these are elite teams for a reason. We're getting a little off topic, but my point is that they've been consistent for a very long time. So for us who are only now growing into this consistent team, one that can sustain injuries and bring in young players and have a system that allows them to flourish rather than throw the entire weight of the system on them when they get here, which is a mistake, right? Boston has a system that way. The Penguins, they did, I believe they still do, have a system that operates that way. You can see their minor teams are usually successful as well. Why is that? Right? It's a structure. It's an overall competitiveness. And the Flyers are finally there. So to lose to Boston during a 9-game win streak, and to really Rask did play exceptional. I do think the Flyers can play better than they played in that game. But I do think that Rask really stole the show. I think Hart played really well. But, again, Boston, it's a great team. They're going to put up a solid effort every time.
Oh, all that you said, you didn't go off topic. You didn't drift off topic. You were just nailing down a point because I totally agree. I think that Tuukka Rask won that game single-handedly for the Boston Bruins. Honestly, I think the
He
play
played
was
well.
pretty much even. The play was pretty much even for the majority of the game, but also for a greater part of the game, the Flyers actually controlled the play. They pushed the pace, as opposed to Boston pushing the pace, which they're used to doing. But the Flyers have played so well team defensively in front of Carter Hart, a unit of 5, not. And it was just amazing to see them shut down a team with 98 points. I mean, at one point, the Flyers outshot the Boston Bruins 22-9. I mean, that's pretty impressive stuff,
Yeah.
when you're looking at it. And I mean, this is the best team in the league, and the Flyers took their system and shoved it right back in their face.
Yeah.
Fortunately for the Bruins, Tuukka Rask had a phenomenal game. On his 33rd birthday, he registered his 50th career NHL shutout, which is an amazing feat. That's 10 more than Brian Elliott. Brian Elliott's at 40. And
That is what
Tuukka Rask, my God,
I'm sorry
just
to
a
interrupt
really
you,
good
but
goaltender. He seems to own the Flyers, but
No, sorry, I'm
what
sorry
were
to
you going
interrupt
to
you,
say?
Jamie. Yeah, I'm sorry to interrupt you. I just want to make a comment about what you just said about his birthday. It's like that is a sports narrative. That's one of those things where it's like I refer to it as sports narrative because it's almost unavoidable. I think I talked about this on one of the other episodes. It's unavoidable. It's like so there are these moments in sports where it's like you might even be the better team, but like David Ayers, right? That story that just happened out of Carolina.
Oh, yeah.
He is not going to win games consistently in the NHL, and no knock to him. I think what he did was amazing, and I think he would agree with what I'm saying. If you threw him into a regular NHL position, he is going to get shelved. But that is a narrative. There are these moments in history. You were just quoting Miracle. There are these moments in history that just align. We don't really understand them. We try to put science around them, and that doesn't make any sense. And then you want to get in the hippie stuff, and that definitely doesn't make any sense, right? So you're just talking about like I don't know. So that's why I just refer to a narrative where you're like it's Murphy's law, right? It's you're looking at it and you're like, well, obviously, it's his birthday, it's his 50th,
Right.
like it's the Flyers. It's gonna happen tonight. We're on a 9-game win streak. We're due. There you go. Like there's the recipe.
Right. See, and it wasn't. I saw a lot of being too cute, and the Flyers were too cute.
Yeah.
And a lot of times when the goaltender is on top of their game the way Rask was, because if it wasn't for Tuukka, the Flyers could have possibly won that game 6-2. At the end of the first period, it could have been easily 3 or 4-0 Philadelphia. I mean, the Flyers just came out flying. That was probably the best start I've seen. I mean, the Flyers have been off to good starts on this 9-game winning streak, and at times like they just came out to a so-so start. Not a bad start, but not that they actually, thought that they would gather, and then they just tear it up, in the second and third periods and whatnot. But against Boston, they came out flying. I was very impressed after that first period. I was like, even if the score was 0-0, I was still very impressed. I was very, very impressed with Philadelphia's play. So.
They're good and they know it. You know what I mean? They know they can win. They're not.
You can see that yesterday. Yeah.
Yeah. And they're not taking that loss as I guess we got to go back to the drawing board. It's like, no.
Right.
No. We'll be back. Like, that was bullshit.
Right.
You know what I mean? Like, pardon my French, but that's bullshit. We'll be back. Like, shut out at home. That's not going to happen again.
I was a little concerned because of the way they played against Blake. If that was going to sit and come out that way against Boston, and it was anything but. And the only reason I was a little concerned was because sometimes, when teams, you see them, like you said, they're running a little bit out of gas. They were going at such a high rate because they're playing so many divisional opponents that they're on such a high. There's a lot of mental aspects to the game that weigh on the players. So they were due to have that type of game against and the same thing happened to the Bruins. Yesterday, the better team, to me, on the ice did not win. Whereas, like on Saturday, the better team, in my opinion, was the Buffalo Sabres, and the Flyers came out on top. Sometimes it happens in an 82 game season. It is what it is. The Flyers didn't have any business. I wouldn't say any business winning Saturday, but it was a murky game. I was on edge. That was the first time throughout the 9 game winning streak I was on edge a little bit. But eventual 9 game winning, I should say.
It almost feels like the way to say that is not so much that the Buffalo Sabres were the better team. It's more of that the Flyers just allowed them. They allowed them to have some dictation in the play. Yeah, they gave them more time and space. They obviously took their foot off the pedal, and that's what I mean. We felt that, and then going into Boston, and not that they took their foot off the pedal against Boston, but you could just feel that, like, hey, like the 10-game win streaks, they're not indicative of a team's ability to win a Stanley Cup. It can be an amazing story. We've seen teams do it. Maybe we've seen an average team do it. It's awesome. But like you said, we have injuries kind of piling up from this 9-game win streak as well, which is not really, it's not a result of necessarily winning, but it's, just a result of, like you said, a consistent high level of play. And this is where depth is obviously going to be tested. And, with this loss, injuries, we talk about Nate Thompson, right, is out now. We know obviously Phil Myers is out. We're going to get to Ghost a little bit later, but, we have key injuries at this point. We already have Patrick still on the sidelines. We have Lindblom out. We have Morin out, right? The names do pile up as we go through the season, but, luckily we have Friedman. Luckily we have Ghost, right? Luckily we have even Bunneman to come up, and now, thank God Frost isn't injured, right? Which there was a scare the other night. So, depth,
he's
right?
not seriously injured, so that is a plus. That was a huge plus that Morgan Frost. Sorry to get off topic a little bit,
No, go for it.
I think the viewers should know that Morgan Frost did not sustain a major injury, and he actually might even play as early as this weekend. So that is good. That is all good news. Out of Philadelphia.
I'm not gonna lie, Jamey.
But in the same team,
I think they're playing a game right now. I had the game on earlier, and I did not get to check if Frost is playing. I'm pretty sure he's in. I'm going to double check right now, and I think he might be playing as we record. So I'm going to double check that.
Yeah, that's fine. As you're checking, let me talk. I think this adversity, with all the injuries and stuff, like you were talking about the Nolan Patricks,
he's in.
Oscar Lindblom's. In particular, that's great news for Morgan. So definitely. But
awesome.
These injuries with Nolan Patrick and Oscar Lindblom, I think make the Flyers a stronger unit as a whole in the come playoff time. And it's funny because I attended a game in the press area back in December. I don't know if you remember. Well, I'm sure you remember, but for the viewers, I'm sure you guys remember as well. I interviewed assistant head coach Nick Luco following the game, and he said that they were fighting through a lot of adversity. And he said, "Next man, what will happen is it will make us better come playoff time." And that's the same thing that the Flyers are dealing with at this particular time, with Felipe Myers being out 4 weeks with a fractured patella on his right knee, and then Nate Thompson going down, newly acquired Nate Thompson going down, with a sprained right knee, sprained knee. I don't know if it's right or left. I stand corrected, but he's out 2 weeks, and I think it's his left, if I'm not mistaken. Anyway, but in any sense,
thank God
just
we
more added
picked
injuries
up
to the
guys.
pile. Thank God we have a lot of depth in the system. And a lot of credit to Ron Hextall and Chuck Fletcher for that. Both of them have worked hand in hand with one another with that. So it's just great to have that depth. And you look, where would the Flyers be without that depth right now? Like a few years ago, who would the Flyers, have to lean on to call up to fill in these center roles here? Because the center position of the Flyers was lacking for a large portion of those years for the past decade, and they've since stabilized over the past since Ron Hextall era, so that's good. But,
I think over the past decade they have had center depth, Jamey, but it's over the past 2-3 years. Think about last year. Who was our fourth line center? Did we have one? I'm not even convinced we had one. I'm pretty sure it was Phil Veroni, but I'm pretty sure it was just used as like an extra forward, essentially in the mix. We went with, 11 forwards last year or something like that? We couldn't even ice an entire lineup by the end of the season. This year, we have injuries, and we're still rolling, you know?
Right.
Yeah, I think we probably should take a moment here to talk about coaching because, I mean, the proof is in the pudding here, right? Like we saw the way this team operated. We gave these coaches time, and they really, really have adjusted nicely. Like we seem like one of the most well-coached teams in the National Hockey League. We are organized. We are aggressive. We adjust quickly. Think about the power play, even just the ability to get out of the way. And I think people need to realize this. I had preconceived notions about Michel Therrien if he is part of this decision to step out of the way and allow them to play this game on the power play that brought on a lot of this flourish of scoring. That's leadership too. To be able to step back and be like, all right, well, what else works? What were you guys doing before this? How do we get back to that? And just going back to what works, it's a simple play to, push your ego aside. And I'm not saying it is, I'm just guessing, but overall, and to just make that happen. He did this, defensively, this team is night and day comparison to was last year. And I don't mean because like Sean Couturier is better or Provorov is better, and they are better. Actually, I'd argue Couturier has been excellent all the time, and same with Provorov. But I mean, the teams themselves, they're better. They're better together as a unit. They play better. They make less mistakes, and that I think is largely attributed to coaching. No doubt about it in my mind.
Well, yeah, absolutely. And you look at Jake Voracek, with what Alain Vigneault has been able to do with Jake Voracek and JVR for that matter, before JVR got hurt, it looks like that, to Vigneault. Right. So that was good to see. And I think Voracek is playing the best two-way game of his career, I think, anyway. And large credit goes to Alain Vigneault for made a really good topic, this defense. Let's talk about Ghost, because I think that Ghost played last night. I thought not necessarily phenomenal, but really good. And he looked, to me, he showed flashes of the Ghost of old. It just looked like he had his poise. He was twirling. He had that pep in his step again. He had that extra jump that we're seeing, have come to see of Ghost, I should say. Excuse me. And he looked confident, blistering shots from the point. What do you think? How do you think he played, Yariv?
Yeah, I mean, well, first of all, I thought that was actually a really well done analysis, and I would agree with a lot of what you said. I mean, I think what I saw last night was a player who was obviously hungry, obviously wanted to show that he is part of the solution, not part of the problem, which I know a lot of people have pinned him like that, which is absolutely insanity to me. I don't even understand the root of that type of thinking. But to assume that one of your most talented players is the root of your problems, beyond me. But, for him to get back in there, because there's no reason to punish anybody. Haig has played well. Everybody's played well. Nobody deserves to be punished. Yeah. You know what I mean? Ghost didn't get to benefit from this large streak that this team has been on where everyone's game improved. And it's not even a denial. Everyone's game improved over that time period. Ghost was dealing with an injury and dealing with his own problems. And that's what Vigneault was talking about. And that's what you were talking about, Jamey, a while ago, is that people should feel bad for Ghost. He couldn't be part of this experience either. He obviously has been having knee issues for a while. And he looked pretty sharp last night. And there was some really good skating. He juked out somebody around the net and drew a penalty. I forget who the player was. And that was a really nice play. That was really good to see. He looked quick, and I expect him to get better as it goes along.
Spinorama.
Yeah. And
it was that Spinorama that drew that penalty, man. It was great. It was awesome seeing it, too.
Well, I think it was I think he juked right in front, and I think he went dropped his shoulder and then ended up cutting to the right, and the guy got a stick underneath him, if I remember correctly. Dude, All I know is this team
You
is
made him look silly.
highly incentivized in making Ghost look like Ghost. Even if you don't plan on keeping him forever, even if you don't plan on keeping him beyond the playoffs, you're highly incentivized to get him back to playing at an elite level, or at least a high level, or at least a high competency. Because if he does, it increases your chance to win the Stanley Cup for one, and two, you get more return on him if you do need to get rid of him or move him out of town, or it's just easier, and then he gets to leave on a high note, or whatever it is. But overall, just wanting to see this guy fail does not make sense to me. I want to see him play
Ghost
an
sucks.
elite. Yeah, right. But listen, it's there, it's possible, and Jamey, thank God he's here. Look, we can just call up Friedman, right, as our number
Oh,
7.
yeah, absolutely.
You know what I mean?
Yeah,
Myers is out.
yeah,
What if somebody else goes down? Like, are you guys nuts? Like, having Ghost here is such
yeah.
a nice assurance. He used to be one of the best
And
defensemen on this team.
that's why you don't trade defensemen at the deadline, especially since you had 7 quality defensemen at the
Yes.
at the trade deadline,
One of the best
irregardless
Chuck.
if Ghost was healthy or not. I don't necessarily think. I mean, when you're making this type of playoff push and you're looking at this team and the overall construction and makeup of this team has been through a lot in terms
Yep.
of the Oscar Lindblom news in particular, and
Yep.
and then you factor in Noel and Patrick missing all year. I mean, this team is invested emotionally. They are invested with one another. They believe in one another. I don't know if this trade deadline, to even if Ghost was 100% to move him, just because of what happened over the course of this year. And honestly, like, I think that's why he rushed back early from injury and maybe has played through this type of injury through the majority of the year. When your name is on the chopping block and you're hearing it over and over and over and over, it weighs on you emotionally and physically. And I saw that last year with Wayne Simmons in January, about before the trade deadline, and you just see the emotion on his face when somebody asked him, and he told him to stop 3 times, and the person just continued to ask the questions, and I was like, wait, I just appreciate all that you've done in Philly. And he went off on a rant for about 2 or 3 minutes nicely to me, and you don't necessarily have to bring it up to a player like that, but you know what it is. But I just think it's not easy when you're saying you're doing bad at you out of your position. I want you to go elsewhere. I want you to get transferred, to another portion or another portion of another part of the United States. I just want you. Yeah, exactly. And that would weigh on me too, emotionally and physically. And I would rush back from an injury because my spot is on the line, and I have to prove my worth so they don't move on from me. And I just think now, like last night, he was playing with so much confidence. The deadline is in the rearview mirror now. He can just look ahead. He focused on himself to get healthy. He just looked confident last night, and I just don't understand. Even some people were saying, "Oh, it's only one game," or something.
I mean, it's just the
Man
beginning.
up. Play had a good game. And I'm not throwing names and I'm not throwing shade at some of the fans or not, because I love them all and everybody supports us all, but like, he played good. And when I'm wrong, I admit it. I was wrong on the score yesterday. I thought they would win. I thought the Flyers would win 2-1. I manned up after the game. It's something that's so small. He played good yesterday. I'm sorry to go on a rant.
No, but it's all right. But it's cool because I think you get it. Actually, I love what you just said. I mean, Jamey, overall, that's why I wanted to jump in because, I mean, I agree with you. I don't think people realize that what this stuff actually does to athletes because they're human beings. And I know it's athletes, they're millionaires, they're adults, they can handle this, blah, blah, blah. Well, it's sure not helping. I promise you that much. You're definitely not helping. We all know that for sure. I mean, I can tell you're not going to do that to your friend. So if you're not going to do it to your friend, can you assume that it's not going to help the person that you're doing it to? That's all we're saying. And what's the overall motivation, right? The overall motivation is to watch these guys excel. I'm not saying you have to love them. I'm not saying you have to want them around. You can want a player, trade and all that. But to, kind of be excited and kind of focus more on being correct and care more about watching somebody kind of fail just to justify your opinion. It can be weird. It's like this weird thing of like enjoying somebody's suffering, and it's like you're really not getting what you want out of it. What you really want is a championship, and we always end up kind of blaming all these scapegoats and trying to find all these reasons why we don't win championships. But ultimately, it's really goddamn hard to win a championship. Sorry, but it's really hard. It's really hard to win a championship. There's one team that does it every year.
So many
Philly
things.
at least has a couple.
Yeah. Yeah. And there's so many different factors that play in. And one of them is the locker room and how this team gels. Because if you're not gelling and you have players that are just more about them in their individual stats and whatnot, that can sometimes do more damage than good on the ice. And that's where I was getting at. Like, you factor in people saying, oh, they should trade your defenseman. They have a plethora of defensemen, up and coming. Friedman's here. Friedman can take a spot, but the Flyers were making a playoff push, and they have so many youth players in their current lineup. Factoring in a brand new defenseman in Mark Friedman, who I'm very high on, and I think you know that, and I think the viewers know that as well. I love Mark Friedman. I think he's going to be a heck of a defenseman for the Flyers. For the future. I really do. He has all the traits. He's a mistake-free player. He plays a smart game. He doesn't have to have the strongest game because he has good hockey IQ. And that goes a long way in the NHL. And that shows me he could have a long career in the NHL for a long period of time. However, this is new coming in and taking over for Ghost in February. And you're heading in about a month and a half later to the playoffs. You don't know what to expect from him. And Ghost, you do. Ghost has been there before. Ghost has been in the playoffs. He has playoff experience. He could actually aid. Sanheim. Let me see. Who doesn't? Haig. Haig does not have playoff experience, so he could possibly, help Haig, out. I think it was a smart move. I just think it was a smart move. If God forbid there was an injury, look what happens. Felipe Myers, has a injury, in his right knee. He fractured his, patella in his right knee. I mean, like you said earlier, if another defenseman goes down, who do they have? Yeah, you could insert Mark Friedman. Then who's your recall? Andy Walensky?
Yeah.
Tyler Wotherspoon? Is that who we're putting our eggs in the basket here for? I'd much rather have Ghost with Friedman being I'm more confident in that.
Yeah,
than having an Andy Walensky on the bench or a Tyler Wotherspoon on the bench. Opinion anyway, or Reese Wilcox. That's who we're talking about. So, what are your thoughts?
Yeah, no. I completely agree with that analysis. I'm all about depth. In my opinion, that's what it's all about. I mean, it's all about kind of survival. Making it to the playoffs is about survival. We're gonna have some players come back. Like, people have to realize that too. If we do make it down the playoffs, guys will rejoin the group, right? So the longer we go, we need to be able to cycle these guys in and out and just really have a system that the entire organization understands, that they're committed to. That the coaches agree with each other, and I'm talking about head coach to minor league coach. Like, all this stuff is extremely important to develop the mindset early, right? You start at dev camp the day you're drafted. This is the commitment. This is the program. This is what most people don't understand. If you guys listen to Russ Cohen at all, he talks about this over and over again. That is a big thing that Ron Hextall did here in Philadelphia. He brought a commitment to an entire program. Most people only see what's going on at the NHL level, but you are seeing the fruits of that labor. Despite what most people want to believe, he made us wait for a reason, for a very specific reason. I don't know if he would be better than Chuck Fletcher. Chuck Fletcher has done a very good job, but I know for sure that the efforts that he put in have led to what we have today, which is the economic freedom, to make the decisions that we needed to make to bring the players in here, the youthful abundance of talent that we have, where it's young talent that is just coming in the NHL and contributing. We didn't trade those guys away desperately trying to make it into the playoffs like everybody wanted us to. He made us wait patiently, and now they're becoming adults. And Ghost, who's only now an adult, like, let's see what he can do. You know what I mean? These guys who are coming back in and out, let's see where this team is come playoff time. Let's see where how things lay out. This is just the beginning of this playoff window. We're in the beginning of it right now. There are plenty of moves to be made in the future. We have probably what seems to be maybe a 10-year window right now to compete. And that's what Ron Hextall did.
Yeah. Oh yeah, absolutely. And Chuck Fletcher is doing the same. He's instilling the Hextall focus, with keeping the picks, as many picks as he can, without, this year was a different year. I give him a trading of fourth and the fifth, although the fourth was the fourth this year. The fifth was in 2021, but yeah, absolutely, that was a steal.
But we agree. But hold on, I'm sorry, let me stop you there, Jamey. Right, and this is something I think it's important because we talk about this separately. Is why certain assets are traded. Again, Kurosawa was traded in the deal as well. I believe it was a 4th round pick. Right, it's a pricey guy for what you believe is a bottom line forward, which obviously he's not. He's clearly kind of on a breakout period in his career and is kind of undervalued. So he's going to get a nice contract here. Most likely, this is a re-signing. So yes, you're losing a 4th round pick, but you're also getting a well-aged 30-year-old male player, mature player that is able to, physically stand the rigors of playoffs, can compete and give you a consistent every year, play in your bottom 6, play in your penalty kill, block shots, and he'll probably make $1.5 million a year for the next 1 or 2 to 3 years. And it's like that is a great return for a 4th round pick. That's what I'm saying.
Oh, absolutely, no doubt. No, what I'm saying is that the Flyers had 2 4th round picks, so that made even more sense, to move a 4th rounder for for Grant.
Absolutely.
And it was very well worth it. So the Flyers technically didn't even lose a pick because they had an extra 4th to give. That's what I mean. So Chuck Fletcher is keeping the Hextall area of focus, using the farm, restocking the youth. He hasn't traded a 1st rounder. He hasn't traded, a 2nd rounder. He has traded a 3rd, I stand corrected. He did trade 2nd or 3rd for Justin Braun. But even still, I mean, he's keeping the area of focus that Ron Hextall was. Flyers have a 1st this year. Flyers have a 2nd this year. I mean, you can't. When you were looking around, and Fletcher was seeing all the division, the metropolitan divisional teams, add Pajot, and then you add a Marlowe, and then you trade for Connor Sheary. It took a lot of guts for him to stand pat and just, go with Nate Thompson and Derek Grant. I don't want to get off too off topic here.
No,
but, where I'm getting it, Chuck Fletcher made a heck of a signing yesterday in signing Wyatt Wiley finally to a 3-year ELC. Take it away, Yariv.
Yeah, man. I mean, well, I'm sorry to interrupt you. Man, you're hitting on all levels tonight, Jamey. That's all I'm saying. Is that you get me excited with what you're saying because I agree with what I agree with what you're saying. And it is a commitment to that. And I know you've been talking to Wiley for a while, right? We've in the background kind of talked about this guy. Obviously, he's played well at the WHL level. He was a later pick, and yet, putting up numbers in a juniors league, one that's not dominated by numbers, but if a defenseman's putting up numbers, there's a good chance he's pro level caliber player at the WHL level, right? We saw it with a lot of players. It doesn't mean he is going to be an automatic success at the NHL level, but we see with guys like Mark Friedman, they can come in and play a top pairing role. Wiley, we don't know exactly where he's going to play. I'm sure you'll want to comment on that in a little bit, but we don't know if he's going to want to play back at juniors. He's going to play with the Flyers next year, but we do know that he is getting to that ripe age where he's physically maturing, his game is excelling. He has a little bit further he can go in the juniors, or he can go pro level and see what kind of role he can play at the pros. Really, it's a numbers game. And it kind of depends on what happens in the offseason a little bit and how he, comes into dev camp and whatnot. But overall, I mean, really nice signing. I mean, we needed him signed. There's a bunch of other guys we still need signed, but it looks like Fletcher's still committed to signing the guys that that Ron Hextall drafted, and that our current scout team and core operations didn't skip a beat just because Chuck Fletcher joined. They kind of continued right as normal and continued to go after the players they like and continue to flourish and watch nurture and bring them into the NHL. Even the guy like David Drake got a contract. Just a lot of guys that have been drafted. Mm-hmm. Right. I mean, but just guys who have been drafted, they're just it's a loyalty thing as well, and I think that's really great. Yeah. And I think with Wiley, I don't think it's just loyalty. I think obviously there's potential there, but I like that because I think it's important. And like I said before, you don't start developing these guys when they get to the NHL. You start when they get to dev camp. When they're 18 years old, you say, hey, this is the way our team plays. This is our commitment today. You better get to this standard by the time you make it to the NHL. Otherwise, you're not going to play in the NHL. Right? You just lay it out very, very flat.
Yeah, absolutely. And the neat thing about Wyatt Wiley is that he played both sides. He played off his offhand, last year. He played the right side, and then he's asked to play the left side. So it's kind of neat because he could fill both positions, a lefty or a righty. So if God forbid there was an injury in Philly, he could possibly be the recall because he could fill either side. And we know that Alain Vigneault likes to use a lefty and a righty together. So to me, not saying that'll happen, next year, because I think as it stands right now, I think he's a top pairing defenseman for the Lehigh Valley Phantoms next season. That's how I think very highly of Wyatt Wiley, just because of he can play both left and right, side. Yeah. Especially that my point could become even more to fruition, especially if Wyatt does not sign his ELC, which the Flyers are heavily committed to having him sign an ELC, this year, and they would much rather sign him as opposed to him return to the University of Wisconsin. So let's see what happens there, because Kalnick could also play top pairing, defenseman for the Lehigh Valley Phantoms, in my opinion, if he did sign. I think he's more NHL ready. You're playing against 24 times 23, 24, 25-year-olders, in the NCAA program, as opposed to the OHL, where there's typically younger players. So he might be a little more mature. But I like his game, and I like Wiley's game as well. So I think that they could actually be a pairing next season if Kalnick actually did something.
That would be cool. That would be really cool. Well,
it'd be kind of interesting because, go ahead.
No, I'm sorry. It is interesting. I like what you said there, the pairings. When I see Kalnick, I actually think he has a higher ceiling than Wiley. I think it's a little too early, but Kalnick, he has this weird intrigue about him, which I really don't understand how this guy wasn't drafted. And he was an overager by the time we drafted him. Obviously, he went right into college and then just started excelling immediately. And I'm like, I don't get it. I was like, why wasn't this guy drafted? I was like, he's already a good NCAA player. I'm like, what happened that he was ignored and that he was, ignored an entire year and then taken, I believe, in the 7th round? It's like, he's a really good prospect. Like, there's a good chance this guy should have probably been taken in the 3rd round and that he might end up being a bottom pairing, offensive two-way, maybe probably more of a two-way defenseman at the NHL level. And I think Wiley does too. I just think like maybe Kalnick has an even better shot, has a little bit better of an offensive game. And it's not really a knock on Wiley, but I'm just shocked where Kalnick, like, how does that happen? How do you get a guy like that? And how do the Flyers doing this kind of over and over again? We haven't even mentioned Zamula, right? We don't even talk about Zamula. There's Cam York. Just think like 10 years ago, Jamey, these names, we were not talking about this many good defensive prospects. If we had Zamula, we were over the moon. That was our number one in the system. Now we can't even figure out who our number one is. Who cares? Who cares? Who cares is number one? How many do we have at this point? And it's like that. We're not used to that, and that hasn't even really made itself to the AHL. And I love what you're saying right now. We're not even. It's kind of just getting there. Like Frost, Farabee, Ratcliffe, like Bunneman's like kind of there, right? Torrensky, and they weren't even high end picks. The high end picks are kind of making their way there. NAK finally graduated. It's like it takes longer than we like to believe, and it takes waves of good young players to make it through. And it took, about 5 years of deep, focused drafting to get to this point.
Yariv, I had to interrupt you. We have a bit of a break news. And
Okay.
I think that we really have to talk about this because this is serious stuff going on. The NBA has just suspended for the rest of the season due to the coronavirus. And the reason I bring this up is, do you believe that the NHL could follow suit? The reasoning behind the NBA suspending from the article I was just reading, I was listening to you, but I was doing this at the same time because a thing clicked on my phone and I saw it, so I did click on it. And a member of the class tested positive for the coronavirus. Your thoughts? The NHL follows suit after a huge market in the NBA has now suspended their season.
Yeah. Wow. That is a huge breaking news right now. I would say this. I do think that people have a little bit of copycat, so I do expect a chain of these to probably happen. And I do think, yeah, I mean, I would say we're at risk of a suspension now with that news coming in. I don't know what kind of duration that would be for suspension. It doesn't mean it's for the rest of the year. It doesn't mean the entire season is over and canceled. Could be 2 weeks. You know, uh, here's the one thing I'll say on the plus side: if it does get delayed and our Stanley Cup run gets delayed, we have a lot of injuries, so we could use the time off. But other than that, you know, it's not something you want to hear. Obviously, this is happening everywhere. I mean, it's more freaky to see about the closures everywhere than it is the virus itself. And I can't say I'm too concerned about the virus, but I'm definitely concerned that they're going to shut down society around me.
I am absolutely shocked. That is one thing not to see because I was talking with Zach earlier, and he said that the Flyers remain committed to being there for their fans, and they did not want to cancel any games, and they didn't want to, let any spectate. They wanted to get in. This is kind of a shock. This has thrown me
Yeah.
for a curveball at this
Well,
particular time. And listen, my first thoughts are to those that are affected. My prayers and thoughts. I don't want to be insensitive. My prayers, and nor do I want. I know you're not either, so I'll throw that out there for the viewers too. My thoughts are for those who have succumbed, to this coronavirus. This is something that is unbelievable. I've never seen markets, like this, suspend, do this. I mean, I've never personally have been through something like this. So
I
yes,
don't.
I am in shock. I don't have any answers at this particular time, to
Oh,
be
wait,
honest.
wait, yo, hold on. I think that we have more breaking news about the NHL right now. I just saw a tweet. I think it might have been Meltzer. Give me 1 second here. The NHL will have a statement the remainder of the season tonight. Personally, I'd be shocked if they didn't follow the NBA's lead and postpone games. That's what I kind of anticipate. I mean, I think that's kind of what we're looking at here, Jamey.
Yeah.
Hopefully, that's not what's happening, but most likely that's probably what's happening. It's not. It doesn't mean everybody should cheer panic and our season is over. But it does mean that there's going to be one of the weirdest times in the modern era, and the modern era continues to get weirder. That's all I gotta say. That's all I gotta say. I don't know.
This is I'm gonna be honest.
Well,
This is unbelievable.
let's
And
not.
I think the NHL probably does have to act in some way, shape, or form, whether that's keeping spectators out to try to keep the players safe, or to keep the staff, and the equipment managers and media alike. If that's the case, but when a market of the NBA suspends, but in the NHL's defense, at this particular time, no player has been tested positive for the coronavirus. So that does play in their hand. And whereas a member of the Utah Jazz, and of course, I don't know his name, and nor do I need to know, but it may not even be a player. It could have been an equipment man. You know what I mean? So like, there's very little information that is given in terms of that. So that does play in the NHL's hand. Is that
Yeah.
no one throughout the entire NHL has tested positive, so that could keep the league up and running at the very least to the players, media, like what Columbus did, or what Ohio did earlier. Like they were able to play games. Columbus just with media, and the players there, and then the essential staff. That was it. So I don't know. This is going to be interesting how this goes.
Yeah, Jamie. I mean, I honestly, I do expect the NHL to follow the NBA as well. I think they're going to be worried that somebody's sick because, listen, everything I've heard about this virus is that it's not really that easy to detect. I don't think it's as dangerous as from what I understand, the number breakdowns I heard that it's actually not a 3.5% rate. It's actually closer to 1%, and that those numbers are actually inflated and misreported. We don't need to go on that. But I do believe it is a serious virus, and I do think it has the ability to hurt people, and I think that it scares people. And I think it's scary, and there's no real way to detect it coming, and it's airborne. And I think it's nervous, and I think they make people nervous. And I think there's a lot of money invested in this. And, I think they are looking at it as a mature response. And if we can react quickly and shut it down now, will it save us money in the long run? I think that's kind of what they're thinking. Um, I don't think we should expect like any kind of long-term suspension here, but to see a hiatus here to see if they can neutralize um, the virus itself. It's a lot easier without large crowds kind of interacting. Maybe that's their thought, but it's it only continued the madness of this season, Jamie. I don't know what else to say.
This is. I'm going to be honest. I don't mean to sound insensitive, but this is a shame because of how good the Flyers are this year and how good we see them and how much of a role they're on. It's just a shame for it to happen this year, during what could be a magical year. I mean, the town was painted orange. People were starting to feel it. The Flyers were fresh, best team in the city.
Yep, it's coming tonight.
This is
Pierre
now. I
LeBrun
don't. I'm not.
expect a statement. Pierre LeBrun expect a statement tonight from the NHL. So by the time everybody hears this, we'll probably already have the season suspended at that point. Maybe we're wrong, but by the time we're done this podcast, the NHL season will have been suspended. And at least the Flyers ended, on kind of a high note here. And, when we do pick back up, hopefully we're, healthy and ready to go by then.
Yeah. Well, I think it's time to cut this off. Just because I don't want to be insensitive, and nor do I, want you to be insensitive. The viewers, the Flyers are rocking and rolling, and we will rock you tomorrow against Tampa. That's that's what my live preview video was about. Was we will rock you. But wow,
Yeah,
unbelievable, unbelievable.
Yeah. Well, we were excited when this podcast started, and well, honestly, at this point, we obviously haven't heard the news. We're just kind of speculating, but it seems pretty strong that this virus This whatever corona strain virus, whatever it is pooping all over our life right now.
Yeah.
Ryan Whitney, wow, it actually is a sick league. Thank you, Ryan. Thank you for that. Spitting chicklets with the hard takes, as always. All right, Jamey. Well, hopefully our season is not over. If we have a delay, obviously we're gonna, we'll probably still cover the team through whatever happens. We'll probably talk about Nolan Patrick coming back and the hopes toward the playoff run. So look out for. Go ahead, buddy.
Yeah, absolutely. Fans, our season does not end. Yariv and I will bring you 100% content every single Monday with our podcast. This week we were thrown off a little bit. We had a few things going on. He had some things going on. I had some things going on. So we had to move it to Wednesday, but we will still continue to do a podcast every Monday. We are here for you and we stand with you. And we love you all. Thank you for your viewership.
Yeah, love you guys. Thank you so much for everything. And honestly, we're gonna keep covering the team. Season's not over, probably not over. I don't know. But the NHL is not over. The world is not over. And we're just starting with Flyers Nitty Gritty. We obviously just started even mid-season. So, we're adding more writers. We have some really awesome writers, some really talented ones that luckily, have become attached to the brand. So we're going to keep grow this out, more video stuff. We're learning, so if you guys see us make mistakes, we care, but we don't care that much. We're going to keep going. We're just going to keep making stuff and hopefully it gets better and hopefully you guys like it. And as we get more professional and, we get our stuff together, if there is a suspension, it'll give us some time to get our stuff together as a team and, eventually bring you even better content, better interviews, more access, cool stuff. Thank you for listening. We'll be back with more.